You have some single-family residential just off of North Johnson Street, and you also have multifamily right there at Sunset Drive. You also have highlighted in blue, just at the bottom of the screen there, you have the future site of the Public Works building, and just next to it in purple, you see that that was the uh, Barefoot Lumber Yard. And so you have civic, residential, and some industrial uses, as well as some vacant, unimproved land just across from the site. The plans have been reviewed by the planning department, by the Benson Fire Department, NCDOT, as well as stormwater and sedimentation and erosion per our memorandum with Johnson County. So after approval, the developer would need to submit construction plans and submit for permits with NCDOT. Their comments were minimal, that the entrance will require a driveway, and a portion of that driveway must be paved that extends out into the right of way. Sedimentation and erosion and stormwater, you must submit a permit for that. Our fire department, I believe you have the comments from our fire department in your packet there. And the site plan has been updated to reflect the changes that the fire department made, just concerning the access for fire apparatus to safely maneuver on the site. So they have addressed that in their site plan. This image on the screen here, you do have site plan in your packet, but I also have a large copy if anyone would like to look at that and review it in a bigger sheet if you need it. I have several copies here. Per our Unified Development Ordinance, because the property abuts a residential district, it requires a Class C buffer on that right boundary line of the project, as well as a Class A buffer along North Johnson Street as a street yard buffer. And you do have some wetlands on the site, so that requires some buffering, additional buffering, and jurisdictional stream on the site as well that requires some additional buffering. But otherwise, the technical review yielded results that it is in compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance. And we recommend approval contingent that it does meet all of the local, state, and federal requirements into the law. So that's all I have.
Do we need to put the package into the?
No, this isn't an evidentiary proceeding, so you don't have to enter it into the record or anything.
This is primarily the same package that was approved in 15 and Saturday.
Correct. It's the same site plan. The applicant and owners are here, and they are prepared to answer any questions that you may have regarding the site, and I'm out as well.
Would it have to be modified if we had revised the UDO?
It depends. So the way the general statute works, it's actually working through legislation now. If once an applicant submits an application for any type of zoning approval, and if we were to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, tomorrow or next week, the applicant has permit choice, and they are able to either fall under the rules of the existing ordinance, or they could choose to follow the new ordinance. So that's in the law now, that they have permit choice.
Any questions? Any other discussion? And if there's no other discussion, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Or they don't speak for, we don't have to do that. We'll go with the song. It's not a public
No,
hearing.
no. Well, there's, said public hearing, but there aren't any changes from the last approval.
Right, namely, the main change is the notes, additional notes from what the fire, inspector noted about the access, but the dustless surface, the, Class A buffer, all of those are still the same, for the prior,
And the fire department's request was just to keep the perimeter maintained so that their vehicles can access around the periphery of the solar farm.
exactly, and to be able to support that apparatus, and also to have reflective lights addressing so that they can clearly get to the site and have a Knox
A Knox
box
box, yeah.
for access. So.
These will be checked as it's being built.
Correct. One of the requirements, the fire inspector definitely meets with the applicants prior to construction. So when it's time to submit construction drawings, it'll go through another technical review to make sure that it's adhering to all of the local ordinances, state and federal, and that they have their proper permits before any certificate of occupancy or anything can be issued. And the approval would be, again, good for 2 years.
You don't see any, there's no reason for us to make recommendations when they've already been approved. Can't see.
My main recommendation is that it follows the Unified Development Ordinance. Make sure maintenance is always a concern, and they have, spelled that out in their packet. And so that's something that, we'd like to make sure that the site is maintained and there's a plan for that.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I guess it says there's no water hydrant available there.
Mhm.
Won't they have to put one there in order to comply with the fire department?
If that's a requirement, I believe the fire hydrant has to be within 500 feet of a site. And so if that's not there, that is something, I don't know if you all have, spoken with the fire department or heard anything about.
Not specifically about that.
Okay. I know that is a requirement, with the fire code, is that fire hydrants must be within 500 feet of a site. So if that is, then in order to be in compliance with the fire code, then that would need to be addressed. And I'll make a note of that.
Any other questions?
Do they have a plan to, like, with waste, if there is any waste, how to control waste?
Like vegetation, I don't know if you want the applicant to, if they would like to answer your questions about, speak more
Sure,
in depth about your plan,
Absolutely.
your maintenance at the site.
Okay, great. I don't think I need to touch it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cullen Morris. My business partner, Layton Grimes, and I are here representing Buell Farm Solar. We were the original developers of the project back in 2015. So we've been involved throughout this process. I was here 2 years ago, the last time the plan was approved, and also the first time. And as you said, this plan is essentially exactly the same. With respect to waste, if you're talking about the actual facility materials, the solar panels, the equipment, part of what we have submitted to the board is a decommissioning plan that requires us to remove all of the equipment when the facility stops operating. So I believe it's within 12 months of the sort of cessation of operation, the facility has to be removed entirely from the land. That is also a contractual obligation to the landowner. The lease on the land stipulates that the solar farm owner has to remove everything there down to a depth of 2 feet below grade, so they have to pull out all of the wire, any kind of concrete pilings, all of the equipment. If you're talking about other types of waste, perhaps the construction material, all of that has to be removed as part of the construction process, and the permit to the certificate of occupancy, I believe, will require an inspector to essentially prove that the site is ready, and that will include removing any kind of construction material or waste. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it does. I guess it wasn't specific, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
But thank you for, educating us about that.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Are we waiting for some type of grant or something to go
Yeah.
over six
Good
years
question.
down
Yes.
the road? And
I was actually hoping that you would bring that up just so that we could let you know a little bit of the context here. So as I said, we originated this project in April 2015. We submitted an application to Duke Energy at that time for the interconnection of the facility. And back in 2015, it was typical for solar projects to work through that process in 8, 9, 10 months, maybe a year, if you're really kind of lucky. But over the last 3-4 years, that process has slowed down basically to a crawl or to a standstill in some cases. And so it's only just recently that Duke Energy has approved the interconnection and given us the final contract for what it will cost to do the interconnection work. So that's why it's taken so long. And now we're at the point where we have met all of the hurdles. We've paid for the interconnection. In fact, a lot of the interconnection work to the lines have been done in advance of the start of construction. And so we're ready to go now. We just need to get our final construction plans in place, get the permits, and start the work. And we were hoping that would all be ready before October of last year, when the last permit reached its 2-year mark. We were pretty close. Just didn't quite get there.
Any other questions? Thank you, Colin.
Sure.
Any other discussion? I'd like to entertain a motion. Anyone?
I make a motion that we approve site 2020-01, so long as it stays within the confines of the Unified Development Ordinance, whichever version of that ordinance they decide to go with.
Second that.
A first and a second, Joshua. Second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Move to public hearing.
guys. Have a good evening. Thank you.
We'll move to public hearing RZ 2020-02. Request, consider a request to rezone a parcel of land located at 325 South Walton Avenue from B2 neighborhood business to B3 highway business within corporate limits of the town of Benson.
Okay, so our hearing for this evening is a rezoning. The applicant, Bartlett Engineering, has submitted an application to amend the zoning map from B2 neighborhood business to B3 highway business. The request is actually for 3.73 acres of the 5.4 acre tract. The property owner is Shariji Properties LLC. It's located at 325 South Walton Avenue or NC 242 South. Map to show you a little bit more of the area, but just adjacent to the property, you have the development just next door where Crossroads Church is currently located, and you have some restaurants and a dental practice there. On the site, you'll see on the screen that there's a medical office, a pain management office to the rear of the site. And so if the rezoning is approved, the site would need to be subdivided before any development could take place on it and create two separate parcels. You do have a hotel just across from the site on 242 as well, and the dog park. So not too far from the I-95 exits into Benson. So see on the left there that the current zoning is B2 neighborhood business. And you'll see on the other image that that is an image of our future land use plan. And that our future land use map does identify that area as commercial. The site just adjacent to it is currently B3. You do have some residential to the rear of the property in Eastwood subdivision. So you do have some, there would be some buffering requirements if the site is developed. And also you have B3 where the hotel is located and the other out parcels right there.
Now, would there actually be buffering required because it's just the front part that's going to B3, is that correct? So that's the part
Right.
that faces 242, so the rear that butts up the Eastwood is not changing at all, it's staying B2, correct?
Right, that's correct. I believe, I'll have to check, but I believe there is some buffering requirements between a B2 and a B3
Okay.
district as well. It's our lowest, I guess you could say, impact or intensity buffering, but you do have that Class A buffer between the site.
Is the current building, is it all in the 3.73, or is it?
It would be 1.71 acres that would be remaining of the current zoning.
And
So-
the existing facility is in that.
Right, it's in
Oh, okay,
that. I
okay.
believe it encroaches just a little bit in the parking area. But the building itself is completely within the B2 zoning district. And just on the screen there, just, information from our comprehensive land use plan, our comprehensive land use plan, describing, this area and, the activity center to be a major employment and business area for the town, primarily commercial, but also including office and institutional mixed, density residential, development. Industrial development is not something that is proposed for that particular area. So you do, and where the site is located, it doesn't call for the mixed use. It's a little further down. NC 242 South is where you'll see that mixed use commercial residential, but this area is strictly called out as commercial on the future land use map. So the B3 is consistent with the adopted plans and policies. Some of the uses that are within the B3 district, you have general office, general and neighborhood retail, general neighborhood service. You have vehicle sales and service, a self-storage facility, a restaurant, and a hotel. With the rezoning, you would consider all of the uses that incorporates the B3 district and not just one particular use over the other. So you just keep that in mind as you're thinking about the zoning going from B2 to B3. And I know that may be a little hard for you all to see, but your approval criteria. This evening, you'll be making a recommendation and adopting a statement of consistency, that the plan is consistent or not inconsistent, and you recommend approval or recommend denial of the request.
Any questions? But the current facility is in the 3.73 acres.
No, it's the current facility, the total tract is 5.4 acres.
Right.
And so the 3.73 that's being requested does not include the facility, the building, the pain management office, medical
And
office.
it's already B2.
Correct, it's
Okay.
already
It's
B2.
already.
So if this request is approved, you effectively create a dual zoning. You would have two zoning districts on one parcel until that parcel is subdivided out. And then you create the two separate parcels.
Now, if this gets approved, are they obligated at that point to actually subdivide the parcel, or could this slip through and the whole thing become B3?
No, if it is approved, it would always have that. If it remains as one parcel, it would always have two zoning designations on that one parcel. However, you would not be able to construct a new use on that parcel. It would have to become two parcels instead of just the one parcel. Does that make sense?
Any other questions? We need to put the package in the minutes.
No, you don't have to enter it in. If you'd like to open the hearing, anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition, they don't need to be sworn in, but they will need to state their name and address for the record. We do have one person that's joining us via Zoom that believe he would like to speak during the comment period.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing then. And it will be for the people who are in favor of RZ-2020-20. All the people in favor. Name and your address, sir.
Mr. Chair, members of the board and staff, my name is Steve Oliverio. I'm with Bartlett Engineering and Surveying, 1906 Nash Street in Wilson. I'm here representing the owners, and Mina Dave is also here this evening, and we just wanted to come and introduce ourselves. We've been working with Aaron and the painting staff. We don't have any questions or comments about the staff report. We're just here in case anyone has any questions.
Is there any plans for the site itself? Are there any plans for what, or just want to rezone?
We're planning on a hotel in the front, possibly 2 smaller ones.
Did you have a neighborhood meeting and invite all the owners to be present at that? Or was that the town's job?
Well, for rezoning a neighborhood per our ordinance, a neighborhood meeting is not required if it is consistent with the adopted plans and the future land use map and the comprehensive land use plan. So they're not required to hold a neighborhood meeting.
But do the surrounding property owners have to be notified?
Yes, we do. We notify the surrounding property owners, and the town notifies them via letter to the adjacent property owners. We post a sign, and which that's mandated by general statute is the notice. The posting, and then the publishing and general circulation, and the town takes it a step further and notices the adjacent property owners as well.
How close is this line to the city limits? Property.
This is within the corporate limits.
But I mean, is it 100 feet, 200 feet from the town's city limits? Because it's
Pretty close.
pretty close.
Yeah. Once you go further, I can pull it up on
I mean, I was just wondering. It's close.
when you go a little further down 242, that's when you're getting outside of the town. But it isn't too far. I don't know the exact distance from but it is with this parcel is in the corporate limits of
limits,
the town.
So the letter from Levinson, it states in here they have the right to build additional condominiums on that property. What is that? Is that speaking to that they also want to build on that property as well?
Libby's talking about the adjoining property.
It says on that property.
I believe, and Mr. Levinson, he's in this, he would like to speak, I believe when you open up for opposition, to the request, but Mr. Levinson owns property adjacent
He
to,
wants to build more there.
right,
Not necessarily on this property.
exactly, just, to the adjacent, property.
And I guess is what he wants to build on the adjacent property. Is it similar or is it different?
I don't know because there has not been an application or any development plans or anything that has been submitted. No. So I don't know, he, as a property owner, as long as it, meets the zoning district and there are any proper prior approvals that the town requires, but he's more so referring to his property that's adjacent to the site.
I guess I have another question. Why, it says that one of the owners didn't receive rezoning notice.
A rezoning notice.
Shouldn't we send them?
We do. We send them notices notifying them of the hearing.
Yeah.
And so, but we send it per general statute, what is in the county and the tax record. So we don't do a title search. If there are multiple individuals that own the property, we're not required to send it to each individual property. General statute states that you fulfill that requirement of noticing adjacent property owners by going by the tax record.
Yeah.
So what we do is we rely on MapClick, the GIS system, and we send it to whomever is the listed property owner and that address of record. That's what we go by. So if he's an owner or interested party, but he's not listed individually, we wouldn't do an additional title search to obtain that information.
I guess what I was concerned about was that he wasn't aware, and hopefully was aware, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a letter that has to be signed for, or is it just a letter that drops in the?
No, it just has to be sent first class mail, and it has to be sent within no less than 10 days and no more than 25 days of the hearing. So that's what we do. We go into GIS. General statute requires abutting property owners, whether adjacent or across the street or across the right of way, within a 100-foot radius. For the town of Benson, we go out a little bit further and we do 150-foot radius. Sometimes if it's a tract that there's a lot of vacant land, or it's large tracts of land, we may even go out 200 feet to notice the adjacent property owners. So I'm sorry, I said that backwards. General statute requires for a legislative hearing and decision, it's required to for a map amendment. It requires noticing adjacent property owners and posting on the site. But the town also publishes it in a newspaper of general circulation.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it was legally fair.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Levinson, I don't want to speak for him in his letter, but we did send out to what the county tax records state and GIS. So it listed as I believe Robin Whitley or Dutch Village Homeowners Association. So that's who we're required to send it to.
Is there a reason that the whole 5.44 acres was not rezoned, or was it not required to rezone? I
That's
mean,
the existing use of the dental office or medical office in the back.
right,
It serves better to stay in the B2.
okay,
She still has a little room on that lot as well to possibly add another building in the future or some parking. We'll probably have to reconfigure her parking the way it is to provide the necessary buffer between the proposed B3 and the B2. So there'll probably be a little bit of that parking that swings around the south side of her building.
right.
But the use that's there now sits with the B2.
I can double check. I think a medical office is still allowed in a B2 or a B3. So you have.
You have to rebuffer, but you have to have a buffer in the back to use up the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, you would. Mm-hmm.
Where you'd be, but leave right now is fine.
Yeah, so office medical would be in both districts, but you're right that it would prompt a class B buffer adjacent to the residential.
Do we actually know that any of the adjacent property owners actually knew about this?
Well, I spoke to a property owner today, and he said he did receive the letter. Mr. Levinson is the only one that said that he didn't receive a letter individually, but that's because of the nature of the way the letters are sent. But that is the only, I spoke to actually, a property owner today, and I also spoke to the owners of the hotel. So, and he called me because he had received the letter about the public hearing and just inquiring what it was. So, yes, Crossroads Church. So, and we sent them to, it's in the packet here, but we sent them to, you have all of the property owners that are listed in there. Those are who we send them to. So unless someone states that they didn't, as far as Mr. Levinson, but that's why we do the noticing, the posting on the site, as well as in the newspaper to try to cover as many noticing or getting that hearing information out as possible.
And I wonder possibly if we might look at in the future, because mail in Johnston County is very unreliable. Snail mail is one thing, but if I go to a closing in Clayton, the lawyer says, don't call me in the first 10 days if you don't get your check.
Right.
Wait till that's almost unaccountable. So it's if we're going to continue to use the mail and it's not going to increase, we might want to look at something else for the people adjacent. Sign for it to know that they got it.
That is something that, the general statute are minimums.
Yeah.
And of course, certified letters, it's a more costly, but that's something that we can look into. We also can have what you call a sunshine list. So anyone that would like to receive an email notification, they can get on our sunshine list, and we can send them information whenever we send out the agenda for the planning board. We can send that to anyone that has requested to be on that sunshine list. So, and we also post it in our office. I don't believe we're posting on our website, but that might be something that we can start doing, is posting on our website as well.
As unreliable as it is, I'd like to see everybody. I'd like to feel in my heart that everybody got that notice that, and mail, unless it's certified mail, certainly is not giving us what we need there to look after all of our people and taxpayers.
That's something we definitely can look into.
As far as the expense, I know certified mail, I know that's very expensive. And then if you go sending this one and then this one, I mean, especially if you have a lot of adjoining property owners. My thing is, working in the location that I work in, we put up signs, like if there's going to be a tax foreclosure or what have you, we put signs. Needless to say, they don't stay up long because property owners take them down. But, we post that, and that lets people know from around the adjoining properties. So is it possible to do something like that? That wouldn't be as expensive. You do? Okay.
Definitely. We are required to put that sign out there for any type of legislative hearing, as well as any type of quasi-judicial hearing or evidentiary hearing. So, and it's always, it has to be no less than 10 days before the hearing, no more than 25 days. So it's a board and that we place on the site, and I try to position it so you can see it from both directions. It doesn't give you specifics about what that public hearing is, which we're not required to place that on the board, or we would be, getting new boards every month. So what it does is it says public hearing for information, please call Town of Benson, and it provides our telephone number. So And we leave that out there until after the hearing. When it runs in the paper, it actually runs for 3 weeks instead of 2. And then, of course, the mailing. So those are what we are required to do per our Unified Development Ordinance as well as general statute.
If somebody's interested, I mean, if they see the adjoining properties, and they go by and they say, well, you know, something's fixing to happen, you know, here. I mean, naturally, you know, I mean, it would be a good thing to have it on the website, but, you know, that would be me if I went by and I saw something that had been a sign that had been put up there. And, you know, I would definitely, if it was, you know, close to my property or what have you, I would be, you know, trying to find out.
Right, exactly. What is that hearing?
Right.
Any other questions? Mr. Steve?
Mr. Chair, if I may request the opportunity to get back up after the opposition to address any specific questions or comments that come up.
If you would like, this isn't a quasi, so you're not cross-examining, but if it's at your pleasure, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other individual in favor would like to talk?
Well, that right now it's not under a site plan review, so we don't have that information. And with a zoning map amendment, we're not looking at one specific use. We're looking at all of the uses. And so there's no development plan, even though that may be their intentions, but they have not submitted plans for a site plan. So you have to caution, you know, if you say it'll be 3 stories and then it's 4 stories, you know, if that is allowable under our ordinance, they're not beholden to anything specific under a conventional rezoning request. You're welcome.
Anyone else for approval? If not, then we'll we'll have all the people who are opposed to rezone.
Mr. Levinson, do you have your microphone ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, all right. You'll just need to state your name and address.
James R. Levinson, PO Box 117, Benson 27504. I opposed it. Don't think you had proper notice. For one thing, the Dutch Villa condominiums are owned by 16 people, not by the homeowners association. They get tax bills individually. And not the homeowners association gets people who gets an individual tax bill. And if you look, if you're serving people in accordance with their, get my hand down here, in accordance with their tax system, we should have gotten one. We didn't get one like you said, of 2 of those condos. And whoever mentioned that I did say that we have permission to build another set of condos on that acreage up there. There are no plans currently to do it, although the law was clear at one time, we got ready to do it. We did because of various things. I also own half of the other tract points that the problem with the Woods family owns. My sister and I own that. You didn't get any notice from there. I understand you sent a notice to a PO box for Woods Estate, I guess, which is in some years. I don't know if that PO box is still active or what, but they didn't send it to me either. My bigger concern though is there really any sort of study to see what effect building a new hotel right next to Hampton Inn would have on Hampton Inn? These fellas put up a lot of money and done a lot of work to bring this fine facility to Benson. And I don't, as a citizen of Benson, don't feel good about, not hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Put another hotel right beside them after they put all the thing up and the dog park and everything else they've done. I didn't see the sign, but one thing, I don't drive out that way right now. Try to keep the mask on and come in and out of the office no more than we have to. And you may very well have had a sign out there. I can't say you didn't, because I don't drive out that way. I do read the Benson Review, but it didn't say anything in there about a hotel being built. And of course, I tried to find out what they were built. I understand they're not restricted to a hotel, but they can build anything in B3 if it's rezoned to B3. But looking at the parking they've got out there and knowing what parking a hotel takes, once they take the space for the hotel and the space for parking, I don't see where they're gonna have enough parking for the things that are there now, which the doctor's facility and the other things that are there now. And that traffic, that's a curve right here, be a lot of traffic coming there. There's traffic now, but be a lot of traffic. I'm wondering if there's been any sort of study to show what effect another hotel would have on the hotel that's there now. That's all of this, so it's got a question.
Well, things of that nature wouldn't actually come up until you have a site plan, correct?
Right.
So what we're dealing with tonight is strictly a rezoning issue.
Strictly
And you can't think in terms of, well, it's gonna be a hotel put there, it's gonna be this, or it's gonna be that. You've got to think of everything that a B3 could encompass. And regardless of what their plan is, I know he came out and said it was a hotel, that's not what we're here about tonight.
No,
Correct.
that's correct. That's right. That's why I was wondering why it was not all B3, B2. But I mean, I can see you may save some money on the back side with the buffer, but.
And our ordinance does allow, we do have precedent for partially rezoning properties. I think maybe 1 or 2 rezonings ago we did that. As long as they provide a boundary survey so that we know exactly what that zoning district boundary, where those lines are and where it will be. So they have to submit that with their application, which they did. And I can pull up just to show you all our noticing the way we get the information.
Yeah, just reiterate a little bit what Ray said. We're not doing the site plan or the hotel. We're not even looking at the building. We're just looking at the land and the use of it. That's it.
Okay, so this is the
This is what you're looking for.
Mhm.
addresses.
Yeah, I wanted to show it on the screen there. So we go to and map clip that has it. This is data that's from the tax office, the tax records office, and we put in 150-foot buffer, and you click on the parcel. And that gives you so those are all of the adjacent property owners that we are required to notice, and you'll see even on the Dutch Village site, and then those individual small, but they are, Mr. Levinson stated that mostly with the Abdallah family, you'll see that that they are. So what we'll do is we will send those letters based strictly off of the county records, tax records, and if that's the address of record, then that's what we're required to send it. Like I said, we won't do an additional title search to notice each individual property owner. We'll strictly go by that, and that will fulfill the UDO as well as general statute as far as noticing requirements.
Any other questions? Any other thing you would like to say, Mr. Levinson?
No, I respectfully disagree on the concept of once they tell you what you're gonna put there, it doesn't make any difference. Let's suppose they said they were going to put a strip club there. You don't think it would make some difference to us? And a hotel makes some difference.
There are approval criteria that the board considers, even with the rezoning. And so they look at that, but they don't, with the conventional zoning, they won't get into site-specific details, because the applicant could say, I'm going to place a hotel there, and if the board rezones it based on that, but a strip club is something that's allowed by right or under maybe standard conditions. Just as an example, I don't think it is, but just as an example, they would be well within their rights to develop a strip club if it meets the zoning. So that's why you have to be very careful, with presenting any type of, or making any assertion that it'll be one development, because once the property, if it's rezoned, it could be any use that is within that zoning district. However, the next step is if they submit an application for a major site plan review, then it would come back for that technical review where NCDOT would look at the traffic, stormwater, fire safety, make sure that it meets our ordinance and things like that. That's when you get into the specifics of that site.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but he volunteered the information that it was gonna be a hotel, but he didn't even have to do that.
No,
He could have just said, we don't know what we're gonna put there, we just want it rezoned.
right,
And he would have been well within his rights to do that.
that's
So,
right.
That's why I say you can't really take into account what it says it's gonna put there. You have to look at all the uses that be under a B3 and know that what you're approving could be any of those things as long as it meets the site plan requirements when it comes back here.
Right.
It goes with town.
Yeah.
It's land use for the town of Benson
And all that
That's right.
comes through with the site plan.
Mhm.
As long as the rezoning matches with what the land use plan says and the UDO, that's what you have to look at.
So we're looking at it. That's right. That's exactly right. Any other questions? Do you have any other thing you'd like to add, Mr. Levinson?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who opposes would like to speak? Would anyone like, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Steve? No. Any questions? Then I'd like to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Any questions? But the town did do what was required with mailing.
Yes, we
Okay.
did. We sent them to all of those property owners that's required. We don't send it first class mail, so we send it. I'm sorry, certified. We send it first class mail. So they don't have to sign.
It would be around the holiday, I think it's a good move to move to B3, honestly. you have the potential to have, like you said, a whole list of things.
Sure.
I think it fits what the plan of the town has for that area already. Behind it, regardless of what they do in the front, behind it, they own that behind it. So it's not like what they build there is going to be keeping that view of the property behind it. So I have no issues with it being rezoned to B3.
We'll have to put a buffer, if it is rezoned, by the way, it has to go to council next Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
But there will be a buffer there where if it's approved for the site of a building, there'll be a buffer between B2 and B3.
I'm sorry,
Class A,
say that
yeah,
again.
Class A, between the two.
So there would be. That
Right.
would go with the site plan.
That would go with the site plan. Mhm.
Along with the property next to it too.
That's right.
Mhm.
Any other discussion? And recommendation by planning or development is.
I do, we recommend approval, it is consistent, with the adopted plans and policies, it would not be spot zoning, although spot zoning is not illegal in, North Carolina, but you do have B3, adjacent to the site, you do have, the B3 across the right of way on 242, so you do have that commercial B2, B3 within that area. And like I said, the future land use map identifies that area as commercial. There are a few differences with the B3 and the B2 zoning district. So it wouldn't be a drastic change in what the allowable uses are. So I do recommend.
Any other discussion? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to recommend approval of request to rezone for 3.27 acres of B2 neighborhood business to B3 highway business of RZ 2020-02.
And that it
No.
is not in.
And that is not inconsistent.
Thank you.
I second.
Okay, Joshua has a motion to approve. Ray second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Okay,
All right.
motion carried.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
next Tuesday, thank you. Same room, same place with the Board of Commissioners. They will have the final vote and say on the rezoning. All right. Thank you.
Members report.
I'd just like to say again, Tracy, you brought this up before, but thank you for everybody to coming out and the folks that went to extra effort to join us via Zoom. This is really some challenging times we're in right now. I'm sure for some of you it wasn't an easy decision to come on out here tonight, but I appreciate everybody showing us.
You have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. That was, the applicant withdrew their application. So that is no longer on the agenda. I'm
All
sorry.
I just saw the sign over the weekend,
Mhm.
and I called yesterday because I couldn't find, I spent a half hour trying to find something on the website. The sign says the phone number as well as the website.
Right.
So I think it would be beneficial to put information there.
Okay.
So
And-
that road, if it was still a good road, that road is probably used. We actually access our property from the next road over, J. Lee.
Okay,
and
yes.
the north.
Mhm.
So if I had to cut down that road just for a specific reason, I wouldn't have even seen anything about it.
Did you receive a letter on it That's probably because you are not within that, adjacent property owner buffer zone. So 150 feet of
Not
ground.
knowing specifically what piece of land it was, I couldn't look and determine whether I should have gotten anything right.
Yes, sir, I understand.
But
Yeah.
even if it's not within the 150 feet, it's close enough because of the property value impact and stuff, so. And she lives next door to me, so we decided to come together.
Yes,
Thank y'all
I'm
for coming.
sorry, we
We
forgot to
appreciate you
announce
coming
that at the beginning of the meeting, that item was
Sorry.
taken off.
Over an hour to find out.
I'm so sorry.
God bless you.
Thank you. So don't show up next week. Don't show up next week.
That would be a lot easier.
Definitely, definitely. We definitely take that because we definitely want the public to be informed about what's going on. So we'll definitely make sure we start doing that.
You know, one other thing, you present things wonderfully.
Oh, thank
I don't
you.
know if I could get up and do that all the time.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Take
Thank you.
care.
Thank
you.
Sorry.
Okay.
Are you here for anything?
No, sir, I have sent as a representative.
So you drew the short straw.
Glad to see you though. Okay, members report.
Glad to be here, man. Good.
Feels good to be back.
Great,
It
great.
does.
And everybody well.
Yeah.
Right.
We got one sitting over here on the screen in the hospital bed over here.
Yeah.
On the Zoom that-
But he's on the upswing, right?
Yeah, he's on, I heard him,
I heard him vote on that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Indeed.
Hope you're gonna feel better. We love you there.
To hear this one.
God bless.
Broke his femur.
Oh.
Yeah,
That's big.
yeah. So,
This was surgery, right?
Thing.
yeah. So he's doing better, well enough to join us this evening, and
Awesome,
just
awesome.
I'm
keep
impressed,
him in
Terry.
prayer.
Planning administrative report.
I don't have anything official, just glad to be back in town hall, and I'm glad to see that everyone is, well, and just praying for Decarius for his swift recovery, but I'm glad that the businesses are starting to open up and that we're able to gather here this evening. We'll be, setting a meeting date sometime this month, so that with the coronavirus, the pandemic, and social distancing, we haven't met since February with the Unified Development Ordinance update. So look forward to getting back to that as well this month, and updating y'all on the next steps on that. So that's all I have.
Anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor, say.
Thank you.
Ah.
Appreciate it.
Take care. God bless, man. Good to see you.
How's your new job?
Thank you, y'all. Y'all take care.
I mean, they're trying to work
Bye.
this mess, but it's good.